I like that side. All right, we're going to go ahead and get this regular scheduled meeting for Tuesday, November 15th, 2022. Let's everyone stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Roll call.
Commissioner Kruschat,
Here.
Commissioner Walker,
Here.
Vice Chair Dixon.
Here.
Please let the record reflect that Chair Pahana and Commissioner Mendoza have excused absences.
All right. Announcements. These proceedings may be viewed on demand on the City of 29 Palms website at www.29palms.org. You may also live stream this meeting by going to the city website and clicking the meeting's agenda link. Public comments. This is a time for the public to address the Planning Commission on issues within the jurisdiction of the Commission that are not on the agenda. All comments must be directed to the Chair of the Commission and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. There is a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you haven't already done so, please fill out your name and address slip and give them to the Planning Commission Secretary. The Planning Commission is prohibited by the Brown Act, state law, from taking action or discussing at length items not included on the printed agenda. Public comments or specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the items on the agenda. Do I have any public comments? They're out back, sir. If you have public comments that you would like to meet, so nothing on the agenda?
It might be on the agenda, I'm not sure.
Okay, then yeah, there's a one for you, and then you just fill that out and hand it to us. All right, looks like I have no public comments, so I'll go ahead and close that form. Commission comments and reports of meetings attended. Jim.
I've attended no meetings.
All right.
I have attended none either.
All right, I have not attended any as well. All right, consent calendar. Number one, approval of Planning Commission minutes, meeting minutes for October 18th, 2022. Has anyone had an opportunity to review those? Do I have a motion?
I motion that we accept the meetings for 18th October.
I'll second that.
All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Kruschat,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dixon,
Aye.
3-0 approved.
All right. Items removed from the consent calendar for discussion. I don't see any. We are now going to move in. Oh, do we?
Yes, before we get started on the public hearings, I want to do a quick introduction to our newest member of our planning department. Katrina Bennett is recently hired, and she is running our front counter right now, and she's doing a great job for us already. So just want to do a little quick introduction.
All right. Welcome. All right, public hearing. We'll go ahead and jump right into it. Number 2, Appeal VHR 22-195 Sullivan Road. I'll turn it over to our staff.
All right. This is an appeal of vacational rental application number VHR 22-195. Location is 68467 Sullivan Road. We have 3 appellants, one of which is here today. Are the other ones here? I don't know. Catherine Talley-Jones, Dennis and Gail Corsini, and John Wall. The applicant is Josh and Jody Siegel. Land use designation is rural living, 5-acre minimum. Property size is 2.5 acres. There are 2 structures that are under construction right now. One is a 3-bedroom, 2,098 square foot single-family residence with a 868 square foot garage and a 2-bedroom, 752 square foot accessory dwelling unit. The appellant, has said the following reasons as a basis for the appeal: that the structure has never been a dwelling and has gone straight from construction to a VHR. That short-term rental is included in the definition of a hotel for the purposes of collecting transient occupancy tax. Vacational rentals are considered a residential use of the property. The lack of long-term tenant does not change the classification from a single-family dwelling. The issuance of the VHR permit does not rezone or reclassify the property to a commercial use. And vacational rental permits are considered ministerial approvals, defined as a permit that is granted upon the determination of proposed zoning, proposed project complies with the established standards of the zoning ordinance. Therefore, if all required documentation is complete, the project is in compliance with the development code, the permit will be issued. All required documents for the VHR application have been submitted. The structures are pending a final inspection from the building division. So this is the location, here highlighted in green. For some context here, the appellants are at, if I can draw here, I don't know if I can, are directly to the west, directly to the south, and 2 parcels to the east. So in 3 different directions, we have the appellants. On the east side of Montoya, we have, this is a VHR permit already right here. This was a VHR permitted use, but has since closed out. Is that correct? And these properties on here are city-owned rental properties. Here are some pictures of the site. And here is the floor plan for the primary residence and the floor plan for the accessory dwelling unit. Recommendation is that the Plan Commission conduct a public hearing, consider public comment, and deny the appeal to allow staff to continue processing the application. I want to note that we did receive several email correspondences, which I have passed out to you today. And I also have a presentation from the appellant, which I will get to here shortly. So that concludes our presentation, and then I will go to the appellant's presentation. Slideshow.
Good evening. I'd like to thank the Planning Committee, and I'm grateful to have this opportunity to speak to you. I'm Kat Talley-Jones, and my husband John and I live at 7054 Mantonia Road. I also represent John Wall to the west, as Keith pointed out, and Gail and Dennis Corsini, who live to the east of the structure. We are appealing the STR permit for 68467 Sullivan, which was represented to us as a 5-bedroom, 2,393 square foot structure on a lot assessed as single-family residential, and it's now completing construction. As Keith pointed out, the city code defines vacation home rentals as dwellings. However, the structure has been built as a hotel. It is new construction going straight to being a VHR. The property is owned by Josh and Jody Siegel in a chain of ownership in the last 2 years that has gone from Blue Sequoia to Evoque Modern to the Siegels. The Siegels' home address is 12477 Green Avenue in Los Angeles. Josh Siegel is a principal for Field Trip Hospitality LLC, which applied for the VHR permit, or Josh Siegel did. The Field Trip business, Field Trip applied for the permit. The Field Trip business address is given as 12477 Green Avenue, Los Angeles. This is the same address as the Siegel's home address. Field Trip's vision statement on their website says, "We are committed to setting the standard for branded luxury short-term rental experiences, one that combines the best aspects of a home with the brand promise of a high-end boutique hotel." It's high-end boutique hotel. Another principal of Field Trip Hospitality LLC is Mr. Dan Tseng of Rancho Palos Verdes, who is principal of Evoque Modern and 15 other LLCs, several of which own property in Indian Cove. I maintain that 68467 Sullivan is a unit of a boutique hotel dispersed mainly throughout Indian Cove, but also in 29 Palms. These boutique hotel units are inappropriate in our residential neighborhoods. These LLCs are building multi-bedroom structures, which go straight to STR, then promoting the rentals via their own STR management company. Other units of the high-end boutique hotel can be found throughout Indian Cove in various stages of construction. And these are images. This is the one north of us.
From Sullivan Road.
On Sullivan Road, yeah. And I don't have a way to proceed.
No, just let me know.
Okay, next one, please. And this is the view from the access road in the back. So it's looking north from an access road between our property and the rental. Next one, please. Then another one in a related ownership matrix is this 2-bedroom unit on Pine Springs and Sullivan. Here's one view, and you can see how close it is to the neighbors. The next one, please. And here it is from the street view. Yet another one, next one, please, is on Indian Cove, below Sullivan, and is owned by Evoke Modern. The next one, Indian Cove below Sullivan, it's the second one, that's also owned by Evoke Modern. And one more, please. This is 7050 Indian Cove Boulevard. It's near the park boundary. This one on the parcel map, it says Josh Siegel is the owner. This is another 2-bedroom, 2-story. And then one more, please. And this is it from about a block away. In addition, next slide, please. And then one more. This matrix of LLC ownership includes a parcel that is directly behind John Wall and next to us, and it's as yet undeveloped. But if it is developed, then John will be surrounded on 2 sides, and we also will. Next slide, please. This is another, this is owned by the DR20 LLC, which is another of the 16 LLCs that Dan Singh is principal for. This is at the west end of Serrano. Next, please. This is another one, Evoke Modern at Sherman and Cottonwood. Next, please. Another one, Evoke Modern at Sherman and Old Dale. One more. And this is a large property on the north side of 62 at Gorgonia and Pine Springs, and that's another of the LLCs called Des X. Most of these structures that are built are out of scale in the neighborhood, and several block residents' views and disrupt their privacy. We feel that our privacy is compromised, and we'll have to work hard not to see what happens at 68467 Sullivan, where the swimming pool, hot tub, and outdoor shower are clearly visible from our living room, and of course, we would be visible to them. Now, as Keith presented it, the parcel information says that this is 2 units, and in fact, there are 2 structures. However, the application is for only 1 VHR, a 5-bedroom house. Other 2-unit VHRs in Indian Cove have had to attain 2 permits. And the idea that it would be under just 1 permit, John and I ourselves have rented VHRs for family gatherings that occupied different units in the same building with separate rental agreements. And the statement by the city manager that only 1 group will be allowed to rent this 2-building hotel unit would, we believe, be difficult to enforce. We live here in 29 Palms because it's quiet and dark. We fear for the quiet enjoyment of our home and the well-being of the wildlife, the coyotes, jackrabbits, snakes, tarantulas, and especially the desert tortoises that move freely through our property. We urge you not to grant a VHR permit to this boutique hotel and seriously consider the implications of having an entire community in 29 Palms dominated by hotel units owned by limited liability partnerships that have no stake in the community. For these reasons, it is unacceptable that the structure be granted a vacation home rental permit. And I'd like to thank our neighbors for their thoughtful ideas and for working as a team to gather information. When Indian Cove becomes Boutique Hotel Cove, we will have few such kind neighbors left. Thank you.
Thank you. She gets. Do I have any questions for the appellant?
So you guys had stated that it's going straight from construction to a VHR. Would it change your mindset any if they rented this property for 6 months or a year to a 1-family and did a single family rental, and then after 6 months or a year said, okay, your time's up, we're now going to make it a VHR? Would that change your mind any?
I wouldn't have the same grounds. I still object to it, just on design merits and our lack of privacy, our lack of quiet, and the disruption of the dark sky.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I'll start calling, because I know we don't have the applicant here, correct? Oh. All right, so I'll have the applicant come step up.
Hello.
Hello.
So yeah, I'd like to address a few things.
Can you state your name, please?
My name is Josh Siegel. So this property is something that I've been working on for just over 4 years now, and I'll speak to Field Trip after. But this is something that I've put everything into, this specific project. I'm not someone who owns all of these other properties that were mentioned. Field Trip's management company, but we have an investor group, Evoke Modern, separate from Field Trip. These projects are not something I'm associated with outside of management, a lot of those. But Sullivan is a real passion project that I've spent the greater of 4 years putting blood, sweat, and tears into. And my wife and I are very excited to use it both for myself and our families and our 9-month-old, but also to rent it out. This will be a short-term rental. It's something we've planned for a long time and invested into, and we've gone about it all the right ways from the start. So, yeah, I also want to speak to just how we operate this house. I mean, and our other homes too in the area. Firstly, we have a local office in Yucca Valley. So I know it was mentioned that there's a Los Angeles address, which is my home address, but in Yucca Valley we have an office and a local team and 15 full-time employees. So we do work locally and, have a good neighbor policy where we have noise aware set up throughout our houses with decibel meters that we monitor closely, cameras that back into support noise issues. We operate as professionally as we can, and that's, I think, unique to the area. I think there's a lot of bad actors out there that have made short-term rentals a bad stigma, and for that reason, we've done everything we can to counter that. So, I mean, as you can see too, this is a nice home. It's not going to be a bachelor party pad. We're not going to allow parties or big groups. It's going to be for high-end retreats and for people to experience the area that we love so much. So, I'm excited to both use it for my family, use it as a vacation rental, and be a good neighbor. I'm always available. So, no matter how this proceeds, I'm available to my neighbors and happy to be as accommodating as possible. Yeah.
Any questions to the applicant? Oh,
Just one quick question. Is it actually 2 dwellings? Is it the 3-bedroom and then the ADU?
There's a 3-bedroom and then a 2-bedroom ADU, and I have no intention to rent them out separately ever.
Okay, that's it.
Jim, do you have anything for applicant?
No questions for the appellant.
All right. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Thank you.
I would
Or
like
no
to add one.
questions for the.
Yeah.
I would like to add
No,
one
no.
thing. Sorry,
Yeah, of course.
if it's possible. The home had massive delays with COVID. It was meant to be done almost a year and a half ago. So the backyard has fencing that's been delayed forever. So I know there was concern over looking directly into that, but there will be fencing done so that there's more privacy for the neighbors and ourselves.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I will go into public comments. I'll get them on the way I had them in. So, John Tally Jones.
Yes, thank you.
And then remember, you direct all questions or any concerns to me
Okay.
or our staff, and then you have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. I wrote this before some of this new information came to light, so we'll take it for what it is. Hello, Planning Commission. Hello, citizens of 29 Palms. I'm John Tally Jones. I live on Mantania Road. Thank you for allowing me to comment on the issue of the VHR application for 68467 Sullivan Road. There are 3 points I would like to make. 1, the structures at the site have never been dwellings, which is a prerequisite for their consideration as a VHR, excuse me. Regarding the application, the structures, like others in the area, were built in a residential community but are not residences. They are not, nor were ever, dwellings, but are instead instruments for corporate profit. This is not the old school mom and pop model where a spare bedroom, empty ADU, or additional home is rented out by a member of the community, but is instead profit shareholders in the hospitality industry, which is in this case not part of the community. I'm referring to the Los Angeles and Palos Verdes addresses that we discussed earlier. I would like to see the Planning Commission recognize this distinction because it is at the heart of our argument. Point number 2, the design is not appropriate to the landscape nor the surrounding community. It's obviously too late in this case, but I would also like there to be a more clear articulation in the future of what constitutes appropriate design, one that honors the landscape and or the neighborhood in question. Many of the examples Kat has shown us today are designed to dominate, to make a grand statement to the detriment of their surroundings. And building them can compromise the fragile desert ecology. For instance, when grading began at the property, there was no surveying of the property. The graders instead referred to a phone app, and as a result, they scraped beyond the property's boundaries and took out mature desert flora that were on neighboring parcels, John and Dennis and Gales. And the third point is one of density. I'm very concerned about VHR density. I applaud the city for establishing a cap on the number of licenses, but in addition to a more rigorous design review, I believe the city should work to ensure that VHRs are kept to an appropriate ratio of occupied homes to vacation rentals. In our little island of a neighborhood on the west side of Indian Cove, we currently have 4 homes occupied either full-time or seasonally and 2 VHRs. And I wrote this before I heard from you that one of those is no longer a VHR. I didn't realize that. The addition of 2 more at 68467 Sullivan brings that ratio to 50-50. I hope that the city will consider these points and take steps to modify their VHS regulations with them in mind. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, the next one I have is Philip Block.
Thank you very much, Commissioners. My name is Philip Block. I'm a volunteer at the Vipassana Meditation Center that's at the corner of Sullivan and 29 Palms Highway. The property is approximately a little less than 150 acres. It sits just to the north side of Sullivan, opposite the vacation home rental that's applied for here. We've been working with the Commission for many years with regard to our project, and we're very grateful to the Commission in the past and their regard for the needs of our meditation center. One of the primary needs is a quiet environment. We chose a very large property in order to accomplish that goal. And we want to make sure that the Commission is aware that we've been working very well with the neighbors to achieve that goal. The neighbors have been very good at discouraging unlawful activities in the area, including unlawful uses of all terrain vehicles on the dirt roads in the area, as well as other activities that would cause disturbance, not just to us, but to themselves as well. We realize there's a lot of complexity in this type of issue with regard to the application that's before you on appeal. I just want to remind the Commission that, in a way, this is still a very new ordinance that was adopted. There's a lot of, I wouldn't call them inconsistencies, but directions that the original drafters had to go to meet the needs of many different stakeholders in the community, including the owners of the vacation rentals themselves. But one of the things you want to consider is that not only is there a limited number of such licenses to be issued in the city, but also that any individual owner can have no more than 5. As we well know, those rules can be evaded to one extent or another with different ownership issues. But more importantly, as you're reviewing and as staff is reviewing any application, you have to review those applications in light of the fact that there's a limited number of these available. Now, I'm sure the city is not close to that number right now, but I'm guessing that in the future, those numbers are going to increase, especially because of the scenario that you saw here, meaning there's, whether it's a single owner or multiple owners, there's clearly an interest on the part of certain developers to develop these residential properties specifically for the vacation rental use. I'm not sure if that was fully contemplated at the time the ordinance was drafted. And so as you do your deliberations on this matter, take into account that this is a slightly different term.
Thank you. All right, Cindy?
Hi, I just want to reinforce what the gentleman from the Visaposana Center said, and to speak to you, Max. We were all on the VHR, the STR advisory committee. I don't think that any of us at that time envisioned that we would be seeing new construction straight to STR permit. Even though Mr. Siegel apparently does plan to occupy this one, there are several others in our neighborhood that are new construction that have been immediately permitted for STRs that are designed to be STRs more than they are designed to be homes. And I would argue that something we should have considered is putting in a residential I'm on my tiptoes here. I guess I could do this. That we could put in something that would have said something like what you suggested, Max, which is that there has to be, like, say, 1 year of residential use or some period of residential use before someone can apply to use that property as an STR. That might act as at least a slight deterrent towards this explosion that we're experiencing actually throughout the Morongo Basin with owners like Field Trip, like Josh Siegel, like Evoke. The MBCA is doing research on this, as has Desert Trumpet, and we do have copies of the LLCs on all of these to show the cross ownership, which we can provide to you. So I think that what we would ask for is for you to delay a decision and send this to council, because I think that this issue should probably go before council to discuss the problem that we're having with STR with new construction straight to STR at a point when we have a housing crisis. And in a way, what we've done is incentivized this kind of construction over the construction of residential homes. Some of these infills could have been residential homes, but they're not, because we forgot to deal with this when we were on committee. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Can I say something real
Yeah, go ahead.
So in regards to that 6 months or a year of renting the house and then they're allowed to make it a VHR. Right now, yes, there's a housing crisis. We're having a hard time finding places to rent. There's not a place to buy, right? So that just makes the problem worse, because yes, I have a home for a year or 6 months, whatever the stipulation states, but then now I don't. Now I'm trying to find another place to rent or to purchase. So it doesn't help the situation. It won't help the housing any. It just make it worse, make it harder, because we have a lot of people in a potential VHR home for a year, and now I'm trying to find somewhere else to go rent. It won't fix the problem. Them building these homes in 10 years, they're tired of doing a VHR. In 5 years, they're tired of doing a VHR. Now that home, they're like, oh, I'm going to sell the home. The home is now available for sale for somebody to buy and then to rent if they choose to go that route. So they're adding to the housing stock. They're doing something to help the problem. It's going to be a slow turn to help the problem, but it will eventually help with the housing numbers in Twin Palms.
All right. Roy? Okay. Which one? Min. That would be me. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'll keep it brief. Essentially, I also am a volunteer at the Vipassana Meditation Center, which is an immediate neighbor to this property. My concern is the noise. It was about a month ago. I understand this is under construction, so no one was living there, and I'm not sure where the noise was coming from. There was some loud music. I think it was about a month ago for 2 days in a row. Perhaps it was the construction folks. Perhaps it was a completely different property. I don't know. But my concern is noise measures that would affect the meditation center, and keeping the place quiet is very important to us. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you show a map as to where the meditation center is in relation to this?
Yeah, I'll load that up.
All right. The last public comment I have is for John Wall.
Hello. I'm not sure which one is, the plot map, do you have that available?
Yes, I'll get to it.
You can show it in a little bit, let him see what
Yep.
I
Is
own
this what?
property here. It's 10 acres, and it is so close that from my back door, I can throw stones over to the new building. When they have built it, they have gone across my property line several times, and there's tracks of heavy equipment that is still there. And it's rather aggravating to have desert with heavy tracks on it. It's not a road, it's my property. Another thing that I'd like to bring up is the fact that we're only talking about the corner of Montana and Sullivan. If you go the other, go west on Sullivan, there's another 4 homes that I understand are on the short-term rentals. And that, when you add all of this together, plus the fact that the property to the south of me is available, it's available right over here. Here's Kern, and my property is further up, but right here.
Yeah.
But the point that I wanted to bring up was the fact that out of a mile, or less than half a mile actually, there's an awful large number of short-term rentals. And when you have short-term rentals, you don't have a town, a group of people that want to survive there. You don't have a group of people who are looking out for their neighbors. So, these things to me are important. And if you increase the number of short-term rentals, then there is not going to be people around.
Thank you, sir. All right, I'll close the public hearing since I have no more comments. And I'll bring it up here for comments from here. So we'll start with Max. Do you have any comments?
Are there two, is there a requirement for have 2 applications for the dwelling and the ADU?
All right, so this is the section where it says license required. This does not make any mention, one way or the other, as to whether or not the VHR covers the property with multiple units, or whether each unit has to have a separate permit. It is silent on the issue. So since it is silent on the issue, staff has taken the interpretation that if we have one VHR permit to cover both of these units, they can do so as long as they are all rented at the same time. They cannot be advertised separately or rented out separately.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Jim?
Yeah. First off, I'd like to remind everybody that the only thing that the Planning Commission can do is enforce the development code. They can't vote against it. They can't go against it. They really have to follow the development code. Now, I was on the committee that relooked at our VHR regulation along with Max, and there were a lot of things we did. We recommended 2 units or 2 licenses per individual or entity, corporation, limited liability corporation, and the City council came back and kicked it up to 5. We recommended a limit on a percentage of single-family homes. The city council came back and they set the flat limit of 500. What we have here is something that is classified as a single-family dwelling. Whether or not was lived in beforehand or not doesn't make a difference. Anybody can build a house and sit there and say, I'm going to build it to be a long-term rental, I'm building it to be a short-term rental, I'm building it to sell later. That's a property owner's right. As long as they aren't doing anything illegal, unhealthy, or unsafe, and it's within the development code, that's all we can do. That's what we can enforce. The other thing is we don't have a density requirement, but there is a limit. And I will say, I've already talked to a lot of people around here, and I know from that we're fast hitting our saturation point because a lot of long-term or short-term rentals are going back on the market as long-term rentals. And they're not going back on as low-rent rentals either. There are a lot of people that put a lot of money into it, and that's just the way the economic forces have worked. So all I would do is remind everybody that the only thing that we can do here as a commission is enforce the development code. If there's a place of ambiguity, then we can make a value judgment. But where it's straight out and the code lays it out, the development code lays it out, that's all that we can follow.
All right, so I kind of agree with both commissioners. They said basically the same thing I was going to say, so I'm not going to repeat that. But we are held to a standard to where we have to go off of what is in writing. So with that being said, I'll take a motion from the commission if we have a motion.
I make a motion that we deny the appeal and approve the application because it meets with the development code.
Want to clarify that we can't issue the VHR until the building permit has actually been filed. So it's allow
Okay.
us to continue the process.
Contingent upon it meeting all the requirements within development code.
Okay, I have a motion.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Krushat,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dixon,
Aye.
3-0 approved.
All right, moving on.
And might want to mention that this decision can be appealed to the city council as
Yes,
well.
and this decision can be appealed to the city council if need be.
Could I ask a question, please? My understanding is that we've hit the 500 maximum number of licenses out there. So what happens in this condition, in this situation? When it's granted?
We have not quite hit the 500 limit.
Okay.
We're I don't know. I don't have the exact number, so I'm not going to give you an exact number, but it's very close.
And what will happen at that point to any subsequent applications?
There is a waiting list in case other VHRs get dropped off. Then those on the waiting list can be moved up.
Do they apply at that time, or do they pre-apply for approval?
So we're going to take 500 applications that we will approve. We're going to take an additional 25 applications that will stay in the queue in case the other ones drop out. Once we reach that 525, our system will no longer take applications. So that we won't accept any additional applications unless we go below that 525.
All right, thank you. All right, I'll close that. Moving on to number 3, your CUP for 22-504, conditional use permit for the car wash. And I'll pass it off to staff.
All right. This is a conditional use permit for a car wash. The applicant is NV5 on behalf of Kerry DiPiero. The current use is vacant. There was a structure on site, but it was demolished. We are proposing a car wash. It is located at the south of 29 Palms Highway between Pine and Oasis Avenues. It is a downtown general zoning. The size is 1.29 acres, and there is not in a flood zone. It is in the downtown general zone, which allows for a car wash with a conditional use permit. There are some architectural requirements that we believe that this project meets. Here is the location. As you can see, it's in the 29 Palms Highway between Pine and Oasis. This is the zone. It is in the downtown specific plan. It's downtown general. Here are pictures of the site. And looking north. The building itself is approximately 3,000 square feet. Parking, the car wash required 4 parking spots. They are providing 4, excluding the vacuum bays. Sewage service will be provided by a septic system with the ability to connect to the future sewer system that will be coming. Stormwater management is through underground basins. And then street improvements along Pine Avenue and Oasis Avenue. And I know the applicant is going to discuss one of the conditions of approval from our engineering department. And there will be a block privacy wall adjacent to the residential to the south. Here is the civil. What you're seeing here up for consideration today is what you're seeing on the right, which is and the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong, this is the actual car wash. And what you're seeing here is the 4 parking spaces with the landscaping and et cetera, taking access off of Oasis, and then actually entrance and exit off of Oasis, and also a driveway that will take take traffic over to Pine. And notice that there is no direct access off of 29 Palms Highway. There is a tentative parcel map that is also under consideration, but staff will handle that administratively. That is not before you today, but we will handle that administratively. Landscape plan has California fan palm, Mexican blue palm, shrubs, desert milkweed, fairy duster, and etc. And there are going to be decorative boulders and decomposed granite and crushed sandstone. This is the colored rendering of the landscape plan. The architectural style is rustic adobe with some accents and some what I consider quite unique articulation and latticing. Here is the exterior. And as you can see, it does have the lattice and some what I would consider very unique accentuation for the architecture. We are exempting this project from CEQA because we're considering this an infill project. Development exists on all 4 sides of the property, so we don't consider this needing any more CEQA studying. Recommendation is that the Planning Commission find the project exempt from CEQA per the infill exemption, and approve the resolution and approve the conditional use permit for the car wash. And that concludes staff's presentation.
All right, perfect. Do I have the applicant here that would like to talk? That's fine.
Evening, Daniel Siegendahl, architect. I'm representing MV5 and Kerry DePiero here. We're in substantial concurrence with the findings, the staff's report, and the conditions of approval. However, there's one exception, and that is that when the staff report came out and the engineering report came out, they had called for a 33-foot half-width dedication. Originally, and throughout the course of the design process, it was determined that a 30-foot dedication would be appropriate. That was from discussions within the specific plan process when the specific plan was being discussed. And so that's what it's designed to meet. And we'd like to request that the Planning Commission revise the request for a 33-foot dedication back to a 30-foot dedication on Oasis and Pine.
And staff would like to acknowledge that we also have Vicki Bredenstein via teleconference,
Okay, perfect.
who's also representing the applicant.
All right.
Yeah, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
Do you have any questions, Max?
No, not really.
Jim? All right. Does Vicky want to say anything? Hello?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
We determined that the 30-foot half-street right-of-way was sufficient back when the specific plan was being developed to Project Phoenix. And there was a public workshop that we did cross-sections for, And at that time, we were determining Project Phoenix right-of-way dedications, and the 30-foot half-street or overall 60-foot right-of-way width was considered to be adequate for the downtown locations for the local streets. And so that's why, as we developed the site plan, we were assuming the same thing would be required. So the 33-foot would really, because we've got it on both sides, would really cramp the site plan to a point where the site would not work as well. And so we respectfully request that you would allow us to go to the 30-foot half-street right-of-ways.
Okay, thank you. All right, I will bring it up to Commission for any staff questions.
I don't generally have any questions. I am, and I've been looking at this all day. I'm a fan of the car wash. The car wash is a great idea. It is needed greatly, right? But the architectural, what did you call it? Unique. The uniqueness of the architectural, I am opposed to absolutely. I don't like it looks like you're trying to present a building that looks like it's about to fall down. It won't, but it just appears that way. And I don't want, as you're coming into town, this building that's, the structure looks like it's cracked and old and beat up. That's not what I want to represent for the town. I like the car wash. I want the car wash, but I would personally like a change to the facade of the building. That's all I have. And then I am okay with the 30-foot setbacks.
Jim?
Yeah. No comments. I'm fine with the 30-foot setback, and I'm fine with, I like the eclectic designs that we have in our community.
Okay, all right. I have no comments as well. I think a car wash is much needed here in the city of 29 Palms. So it's not my choice as well, Max, for that decorum. But I mean, it's not it really is not my choice either. But it's not bad. So,
To me, it doesn't go with the downtown specific plan architectural guidelines.
Yeah.
It doesn't fit within that. Right. There are guidelines, yes, but it doesn't. If we don't make people adhere to the guidelines within, some limits of you can go a little past that, then what's the point of having guidelines? If they'd be willing to change that, I'm a yes all day. For right now, I don't know.
Excuse me, just so you know.
if you can come up to the podium.
Carrie DePiro. We're not opposed to changing that, but it was your planner that was here before who requested that facade. Wasn't for it at all. I don't like it either. But he pretty much insisted on it, remember? So I'm sure Dan and I can work through that.
No.
Yeah, I didn't like it either.
Okay.
All right, thank you. So what can we do in that instance?
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, so, all right. I have a motion?
I have a motion. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the conditional use permit with the conditions that they change the architectural facade of the building. Would we have to rediscuss that or re-vote on that? Or could we make the condition that they fall within the guidelines of the architectural from the downtown specific plan?
We're going to be here all day if we argue about aesthetics, and changing in the middle of the stream. It's either we approve the design as is and go forward, or because there's going to be other designs. I don't have a problem with it. I think it's unique, but it's nothing that. And that's what you're going to get. You're going to get, and if we bring in the whole planning commission, we're going to get 5 different opinions.
Okay. Let's,
I'm going to make a suggestion to the Planning Commission. I think there was some consensus on the road improvement issue. Now, let me do a little bit of background on that. This is in the downtown specific plan. There is some verbiage in the specific plan that does say something to the effect of pedestrian, more pedestrian friendly and all that. Well, and the Project Phoenix on its border to local streets did a 60-foot. Is it an official standard? No, but there is precedent set. I'm going to ask the commission to decide that issue first before we go on to the rest of it, if that's suitable to the Planning Commission.
So I'll make a motion, we approve the conditional use permit with the 30-foot setbacks vice the 33-foot setback.
Okay. And let me get to the architecture then. Architecture is very subjective, like you mentioned. We also have 3 commissioners here and not 5. So unless there's a unanimous vote, any motion will fail on that particular issue. Could we come back, could we approve the shell part of it, the development part of it, and come back with an architecture later on? As of this moment, I don't see any reason why we couldn't do that, because we could do that under some other motion, I guess. But if you are okay with the site design and the overall shell building footprint and the heights and all of that, perhaps we can do that. But a reminder that you need a unanimous vote for any of that to occur.
So what I'd need a motion with that in there.
Well, I make a motion that, okay.
If the owner of the building said she wasn't a fan of this look anyway, I don't see, it's not a huge stretch for her to come back with something that is more contemporary or whatever you want to call it, that we all could easily agree on like we generally do for the other buildings.
Okay, excuse me, I agree, but I don't want to lose any more time here. 10 months, guys, 10 months.
And I'm not suggesting we continue this project.
I would like to make a motion that we approve the project as is with the 30-foot, what do you want to call it, the 30-foot amendment?
To the modification to that particular
30-foot, yeah,
condition.
with the modification and the present design.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second.
All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Kruschat,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
No.
Vice Chair Dixon.
Aye.
2-1 approved.
So can we do another motion?
Okay, so I'm getting the advice that this is, that is.
For a CUP, it's a simple majority of the quorum.
Okay, and I will say though, that we can do a revised permit, this being approved, that we can do a revised permit to modify the architecture, which will come back here, if you wanted to do it that way. Just pointing that out to the applicant.
I wouldn't be so opposed to that if we hadn't already submitted a completely separate set of elevations that was rejected by the planning staff originally. They were dramatically different from this one, and he asked for more southwest. And this was before your specific plan guidelines were put in place. So we didn't have anything to go on. So we kind of got caught in the middle.
I'm just trying to present an option.
I know, I'm sorry.
All right.
You could, just for our edification, could you please email those to us?
The original?
Yeah.
All right, perfect. We're going to go ahead and move on Number 4, electric vehicle charging stations and parking requirements. I'll pass it off to staff.
Okay, a little bit of a background here. In the 2023 California Building Code update, and there's a more lengthy name for it, but for short-term reference, for short reference here, which the City Council has approved. It's going to go for its second reading in December. They introduced requirements for new and rehabilitated parking lots to include spaces for electronic vehicle parking and electric vehicle parking stations. It is the opinion of community development staff that these regulations should also be in the development code, not just in the building code. It is for, we feel it benefits staff and it benefits the public that these regulations are in with the rest of the parking regulations of the building code. It is not mandatory that we do this. We just think it would be helpful to do this. And if the Planning Commission decides not to move forward with this regulation, then we as staff would just refer to the building code for these types of regulations. For the Planning Commission's edification, this is the chart that is being introduced into our development code, which is reflective of the building code. What is being introduced is multifamily dwelling units. 5% of the required parking shall have electronic vehicle charging stations installed. For all non-residential projects, the chart goes as follows, and I'm not going to read every single number on there, but you can see there's a graduated requirement for the number of electronic vehicle capable spaces and also spaces where charging stations will be installed. So this is right out of the building code that staff would like to put into the development code. Now, we are requesting the Planning Commission approve these modifications to the development code. The Planning Commission has two options here. One is to deny this ordinance and just simply have staff refer to the building code, and that should be number 2 there. That the Planning Commission recommend even more stringent electronic vehicle parking requirements if the commission so desires. We can always go more strict than the state says. We can't go less. So that concludes staff's presentation.
All right, I'll open it up for because I have no public comments. So I will open up to commission comments.
I don't have any comments.
All right, Jim?
No comments.
I have none as well. I'll take a motion.
Then I make a motion that we agree with the recommendation of moving it over to the development code and presenting that to the city council.
All right, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, roll call vote.
Commissioner Kruschat,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dixon,
Aye.
3-0 approved.
All right, moving on. Number 5, Development Code Amendment, potbelly pigs.
All right, so a little bit of a background on this. We do have a representative from our animal control department here. Our animal control department has, in recent years, received several inquiries as to whether individual property owners or residences of the city may keep miniature pigs as pets. I want to do a little bit of a disclaimer here. We may use the term miniature pigs and potbelly pigs interchangeably. They mean the same thing for purposes of this ordinance. The definition is as shown, and it's any domestic miniature Vietnamese, Chinese, or Asian potbellied or potbelly pig not exceeding 125 pounds in weight and 18 inches in height, measured at the shoulder. And then it would be, this is a summarization of what we've included in the staff report, but 1 miniature pig would be allowed in these zones and 2 miniature pigs would be allowed in those zones which have higher acreages. There are several licensing requirements that animal control has included in this ordinance. One is that these potbelly pigs need to be spayed and neutered. And they cannot be way more than 125 pounds. Shall not be taller than 18 inches and measured from the shoulder. Male pigs have to be detusked. They have to be confined within a fenced area. And if they were to be out in public, on a street or public space, then they need to be constrained with a harness. And we, like I said, we do have a member of, we have our animal control director here. And we are recommending that the commission approve these modifications, these additions to the development code to reflect the requirements for the keeping of miniature pigs. Commission has two alternatives: recommend denial and not move forward with it, or suggest any other modifications as the commission sees appropriate.
All right, would the expert like to come up and talk about the potbelly pigs?
How you doing, Commissioners? My name is Rick Boyd with the City of 29 Palms Animal Control. I'm here to answer any questions that you have about the pigs. Back in the day, probably about 15 years ago, we did have ordinance and we allowed potbelly pigs with an exotic animal permit that would allow potbelly pigs in the city limits of 29 Palms. We had a code enforcement which switched some codes around and took potbelly pigs out of it, made them illegal in the city of 29 Palms. Why that was done is because potbelly pigs would get loose sometimes. We all know how they burrow. They're very strong. They would get loose sometimes, and they're very hard to catch. Hence, animal control buying a net gun. So we bought a net gun to catch potbelly pigs. So back then there was a problem, not with the community, but more with somebody writing the codes. So that's kind of basically how that went. What we're wanting to do now, as other cities do, we want to follow in suit with other cities. And a lot of other cities, we're very strict by not allowing potbelly pigs. Almost every city allows potbelly pigs. They're very clean. They're as dirty as you want them. You could put a mud bath out there, a mud pile. Yeah, they're going to roll in it because that's what cakes their skin. But they're very clean. They make no noise. Proper ones, you know, you can litter box train them. They're house pets. Summertime, you put suntan lotion on them so they don't burn. They don't smell unless you want them to smell, you know. It's not like a farm pig. Potbelly pigs are domesticated pets. You shouldn't eat potbelly pigs. I know you can, but they're not for food. They're not for milk. They're not for anything like that, which makes them not livestock. So what we're asking is for an amendment for the development code to allow our residents in 29 Palms with special regulations to own a potbelly pig, maybe two potbelly pig, depending on their zoning.
All right, do you have any questions?
Yeah. Rick, would this meet your requirements the way it's written right now?
It would.
Okay.
Yes, I went through it and everything with Keith, and we went through it with fine comb, and yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I really don't have any questions over this. I just had one quick question. Is the city allow goats here too?
They do, depending on the zoning, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Your RL 2.5 zone, you know, you're allowed up to 12 livestock, you know, so you could have, say, 6 small and say, I think it's like six small and maybe 5 large. So you could intertwine, you could have a couple goats with, say, 4 cows. So it really depends on your zone. We're really careful with this zoning with the RS 1, 2, 3, 4 being just 1 pig, you know, per household, and with those bigger, with the 2.5 acres, 5 acres and above, allowing 2. But again, those acreage would allow up to 12 livestock, so we wouldn't see a problem with them owning 2 potbelly pigs.
Nice. I want a fainting goat. That's why I asked.
A fainting goat?
That's what I want.
They go to sleep a lot.
I know. All right. Thank you so very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I have no public comments. Do you have a form? All right. Can you bring it up to the Planning Commission Secretary?
Yeah, I came in late, I'm sorry. It's on the potbelly thing with Rick. Oh. What's the date today?
15th.
Oh, 15. One day's like another.
All right. If you can go ahead and step on up, ma'am.
Okay, if Rick could stay. My question on the pigs.
I don't know, I just want.
Ma'am, can you
information.
direct it towards us, and then we'll ask him the
Okay.
question?
Anna O'Hare, 29 Palms. Here's my question. On the pigs, feces, how do we dispose of it, or what do they do with pig feces?
Yes. Is that the only question you have?
No, I have another one after he answers this one.
Okay. Yeah, you can go ahead and answer that one then.
So pig feces could be just ground into the ground. They eat a grain food, so almost like horses. Doesn't stink. Pig feces don't really have a smell. Not like dogs, cats.
And is there any contamination of the ground at all, as far as you know?
No, it's a good grain food that they're supposed to eat.
Okay.
Grain food.
And do the pigs need immunizations of any kind?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, that's all I want to
All right,
know.
thank you.
Clarifying it for the public. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. With that being said, I'll bring it back up here for any of your commission comments. Jim? Max?
No comments.
All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the addition to the development code.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Roll call.
Commissioner Kruschat,
Aye.
Commissioner Walker,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dixon,
Aye.
3-0 approved.
All right. Perfect. All right. Learned something new.
Thank you, gentlemen.
No problem. All right, the last one on the agenda, number 6, amendment to housing, safety, and land use elements of the general plan. I'll go ahead and pass it off to our staff.
I want to introduce what's your last name again? Christ. Nicole Christ, who's been who was the author and developer of this of these amendments. So take it away, Nicole.
Good evening, gentlemen. You have before you the amendment of 3 elements of the general plan, all being required by state law. The housing element is comprehensive. It's a required element of the general plan, and it's also the only element that needs to be updated on a regular schedule. The safety element updates are required primarily for flooding and fire hazard, as well as climate resiliency additions that are also required by state law. And the land use element addresses disadvantaged unincorporated communities in our sphere of influence, also a requirement of state law, and amends the land use map to reflect the downtown specific plan and the sphere amendment. Next slide, please. The housing element, and you did a study session earlier this year on that. Oh, thank you. The housing element is required to assure that the city facilitates the development of housing for all segments of the community with a particular focus on affordable housing. We have an 8-year planning cycle from October of 2021 to October of 2029, and that's what we're planning for. We have included requirements for, next slide, please. Thank you. We have removed barriers for affordable housing and addressed the needs of all residents based on our regional housing needs allocation, the RHNA, which was assigned to us by the Southern California Association of Governments, which is mandated by law to distribute its regional allocation to all 191 of its jurisdictions. And the RHNA is the target to which we strive, but we are not required to build any of these units. We are simply required to facilitate them. And the biggest addition to the housing element this cycle is the addition of a section on an assessment of fair housing, which was a new addition to state law. Next slide, please. So the city, this cycle was assigned a total of just over 1,000 units. About half of those are above moderate income units, so those will be market units. Most of the moderate income units in the city will also be market units because we have relatively affordable housing in the city compared to the county median. Our extremely low, very low, and low income housing assignments Those will likely need to be subsidized and produced by either joint partnerships between the city and an affordable housing developer, as the city is currently doing on the parcel here, next to City Hall, or on other sites throughout the community. Next slide, please. So we are required to identify sites, and we have identified sites for twice as many units as we require. This was done on purpose to provide the city with some flexibility. There's a requirement of state law that you have to show that you have no net loss in your assigned units. And so by having extras, we can have one project go ahead and still have plenty of capacity to meet the 1,000 units that we need to go to make room for the next 8 years. The City Hall project is shown on this map as a little green dot as site number 14 near the bottom. Next slide. There is no major shift in the policy direction in the housing element. The challenge remains being able to provide septic service for higher density projects. And for the short term, that will continue to be through the provision of pocket plants on sites, on apartment project sites. The changes that have been added to the element, particularly relating to policies, are changes in the development code to update accessory dwelling units to the current, and density bonuses to the current state standard. Adding a definition and a permitted use category for employee housing and low barrier navigation centers. Low barrier navigation centers is the state's very fancy name for a homeless shelter that also provides services such as employment and housing placement. We have requirements for restrictions for congregate care facilities that need to be modified. They're no longer consistent with state law. And in order to facilitate multifamily development, we have included a policy that would change the requirement from a conditional use permit to a simple site plan review, so as to make it more simple for a multifamily project to move forward.
And those development code amendments will be forthcoming. They are not part of this
They will
application.
be coming to you
Next year.
at the beginning of next year. And we've also modified some of the policies to address the assessment of fair housing as it relates to disadvantaged communities and segregation. Next slide, please. As I stated, the safety element is required to be updated to reflect changes in flooding and fire hazard mapping, to incorporate the city's local hazard mitigation plan. By reference, we are not adding the entire hazard mitigation plan to the general plan. We also are required to add a climate change adaptation subsection and policies to address those subjects. And that is all provided in track changes in your packet this evening. For the land use element, we are adding or replacing 2 exhibits, Land Use 3 and Land Use 5, to include the downtown specific plan and the revised sphere of influence. And we've also added a discussion regarding disadvantaged unincorporated communities that addresses how public services can be provided to those areas should they be annexed in the future. And that is also a requirement of recent law. Next slide, please. There was an initial study prepared and circulated for this project. That initial study found that the project would not have any impacts on the environment because it is a policy document that does not result in any physical change to the environment, and future development projects facilitated particularly by the housing element will be reviewed under CEQA individually as they move forward, so a negative declaration is proposed. And staff's recommendation this evening is that you adopt the resolution recommending approval by the City Council of the initial study negative declaration and the amendments to the 3 elements. And I'm glad to answer any questions.
All right, do I have any questions to the staff? Jim?
Well, I have a comment for our staff. Request in the future. When we have a document that's 540 pages long and you drop it to me on Thursday, and even though I downloaded it to my iPad and read it when I was docenting at the museum and throughout, I like to think like I'm still rushing through the document. Is there any way that we can get these a large document like this to us like 2 weeks in advance to really do a...
That's a point taken. In the future, we'll...
I don't want to hold this up.
No, I understand.
I know you have to get moving on it. But I would like to feel that I read the housing element part. I tried to get, but that was real quick, and I just would like to have a little more time to spend with it.
Understood.
All right. Do I have any public comments? I don't have any papers. Open it up. I'm going to close it. All right. Bring it back up here. I think we've asked our questions, right? All right. With that being said, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion, we approve the amendment with the negative declaration and add the amendments, and approve the amendments. To forward to City Council.
All right. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I second.
All right. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Kruschat?
Aye.
Commissioner Walker?
Aye.
Vice Chair Dixon?
Aye.
3-0 approved.
All right. Now we'll move on to discussion of potential action items, which I see none.
That is correct. So, just like the amendments to, I'm going to go into Community Development Director updates.
Okay.
That's right. Just like the amendments to Development Code with regards to housing, we as staff are looking at several cleanups of the Development Code that we think are highly appropriate, like something as witnessed today, there's still some ambiguities in several sections that we're planning on bringing forth to you next year. In fact, we're going to try to do a whole series of them next year. So just putting it out there.
Perfect. All right. We have no study sessions. So with that being said, I will adjourn this meeting.